Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. In the tranquil town of Cedar Creek, time seemed to move at a slower pace, where the rustling of leaves blended harmoniously with the gentle flow of the nearby river. Families gathered for picnics in the park. Children played tag in the streets, and every neighbor knew the name of the next. Life in Cedar Creek appeared idyllic, but on June 15, 2019, the veneer of peace shattered with a crime that would haunt the town for years to come. The air was thick with summer warmth. The sun hung low in the sky as people prepared for an ordinary Saturday evening. But as twilight descended, chaos erupted. The local authorities received an anonymous alert, and breathless that sent a ripple of fear through the heart of the community. A body had been discovered in a deserted area just outside of town, a place where the sounds of laughter typically echoed, but now held an eerie silence. Deputy Sheriff Marie Thompson was among the first on the scene. Years of experience had prepared her for the worst, but nothing could brace her for the sight that awaited her. Lying face down beneath a tangle of weeds was a woman in her early 30s, lifeless and vulnerable. A scattering of personal belongings surrounded her. A purse with contents spilled across the ground, a single black stiletto, and a silver locket that glimmered in the fading light. As she crouched down to inspect the body, Deputy Thompson felt an unsettling pit form in her stomach. The victim's identity was yet to be revealed, but one truth was painfully clear. Tranquility of Cedar Creek had been shattered, and its shadow would follow them all. The delicate balance of safety had been disrupted, thrusting the townsfolk into a chilling reality they had never anticipated. The victim. The body lay in a clearing surrounded by thick underbrush, where sunlight barely penetrated the leafy canopy. Deputy Thompson quickly noted that the woman, despite her tragic condition, bore a certain elegance. Her hair, once styled in soft waves, now surrounded her like an unkempt halo. The stiletto shoe beside her hinted at a night out, perhaps an evening filled with laughter and dancing that had taken a sinister turn. An unmarked van arrived as the crime scene unit began to cordon off the area. With the forensic team taking charge, Deputy Thompson stepped back to collect her thoughts. Local law enforcement had begun to spread the word to ensure swift dissemination of any information. They needed names quickly. The victim was soon identified as Emily Foster, a beloved local teacher. In her small town community, Emily was known not only for her dedication to her students, but also for her infectious laughter that could brighten anyone's day. Friends described her as compassionate and outgoing, often organizing community events and volunteering at the local shelter. But behind the facade of her seemingly perfect life, there were hints that something darker might have brewed beneath the surface. As she reviewed Emily's case file, Deputy Thompson noted a series of troubling phone calls reported in the weeks leading up to her death. Neighbors recalled hearing arguments late at night, punctuated by slamming doors and frantic footsteps. Although Emily always maintained that everything was fine, offering warm smiles and reassuring word sources hinted at a tumultuous relationship with a boyfriend, whose name now appeared in the notes. Kyle Harris. The more Deputy Thompson dug, the more it became evident that Emily's life was not as simple as it seemed. Behind the cheerful facade was a woman whose world might have been unraveling. And in a town where evil had never dared to rear its head, a question lingered. Could someone from within their close-knit community have harbored a darkness capable of such violence? As night descended over Cedar Creek, It became clear that the search for answers had only just begun. Crime scene. The remnants of daylight slipped away as Deputy Thompson crouched at the edge of the crime scene, her flashlight cutting through the shadows with an unforgiving glare. The forest surrounding the clearing felt alive, whispering secrets in the cool breeze, as the forensic team meticulously collected evidence. They worked in a practiced rhythm, unfazed by the grim task before. The scent of damp earth mixed with the metallic tang of blood hung in the air, reminding everyone present of the reality they faced. Every piece of evidence had potential significance, and each detail mattered. A splintered twig caught Thompson's attention as she scanned the area. It seemed out of place among the dense foliage, as if someone had been forcefully dragged or had struggled against the ground. As one forensic technician dusted the purse for fingerprints, another photographed the scene, capturing every angle and detail, while two more sat down to sketch impressions of the layout. Each element of the scene would weave together a narrative, and getting it right was essential. With every photograph, Thompson's heartbeat synchronized with the rhythmic click of the camera's shutter, resonating with her growing apprehension. She crouched beside the victim again, studying the silver locket. Could it have contained a photograph? A symbol of love? Or a memento? The clasp was pinned shut, but she made a mental note to ensure it was, documented. A glimmer of urgency coursed through her as she envisioned the connections this necklace could reveal. The arrival of Detective Mark Sullivan, a seasoned investigator who had seen his fair share of horrors, shifted the scene's atmosphere. As he approached, his brow creased with concern. He knew the people of Cedar Creek knew their stories, their lives intertwined like the branches above. "How are we looking?" he asked, his voice low but firm. "No signs of struggle here, but we've got to figure out who Emily was with last. We can't overlook those calls." Thompson met his gaze, determination igniting within her. With the crime scene now locked down and vital clues being gathered, time was slipping away, and every moment brought them closer to unraveling the mystery. The peaceful veneer of Cedar Creek was shattered, but in that darkness lay a pathway to light. If only they could find it before it was too late. The early investigation. With the sun rising over Cedar Creek, the early morning light seemed almost too bright to illuminate the shadows of yesterday's tragedy. Deputy Thompson sat at her desk, sifting through her notes with a steaming cup of coffee at her side, the bittersweet aroma contrasting with the unsettling situation they were facing. Today marked the beginning of the investigation that would unravel a complex web of relationships, secrets, and motives. The first course of action was to reach out to the townspeople who had known Emily Foster. Thompson prioritized interviewing her colleagues at Cedar Creek Elementary School. Most had gathered in the teacher's lounge, faces drawn and somber, their shock palpable. Emily had been their beacon of positivity, and the idea of her life being cut short felt inconceivable. As she walked into the room, the hush that fell over the crowd confirmed their feelings. This was no ordinary day. "I know this is difficult," she began, her voice steady, "but I need your help to understand Emily's life these past few weeks. We're looking for anything unusual, anything at all." The chatter of memories flooded the room. Laughter and shared anecdotes punctuated the air, but Thompson focused on the undercurrents of sadness and concern. One young teacher, Sarah, hesitated before speaking. "I noticed she was a bit distant lately. She would get these late-night calls and it sounded heated. I never thought much of it. We all have our issues. but it's haunting me now. Detective Sullivan entered with a folder of information, catching part of the conversation. He studied the other teachers' faces while Emily's colleagues recounted moments of worry and confusion. "What about her boyfriend?" he interjected, pulling out a photo of Kyle Harris from the folder. "What can you tell us about him?" The mood shifted immediately. "Kyle?" Sarah's brow furrowed, memories surfacing. "I thought he was good for her at first, but things changed. She seemed uneasy. She even mentioned wanting to break up a few weeks ago. I brushed it off, thinking it was just the stress of work." The detective nodded, noting the pattern taking shape. As the interviews progressed, Thompson felt the weight of the community's grief mixed with creeping dread. Someone had held a darkness that had attached itself to Emily, leaving everyone to grapple with the fallout. College friends had reached out, some mentioning troubling interactions at a local bar where they all used to gather, while old acquaintances painted a picture of a woman haunted by a partnership that had become suffocating. As the investigation unfolded, one thing became painfully clear: Emily had fought her battles quietly, and the truths buried beneath the surface were only just beginning to emerge. With each conversation, Thompson and Sullivan grappled with the widening circle of suspicion, knowing that the quiet town they loved was now teetering on the edge of chaos. The dead ends. Days blurred into nights as the investigation deepened. Yet each lead Thompson and Sullivan chased eventually seemed to dissolve into nothingness. The detectives dove into Emily's digital world, poring over her social media, emails, and messages, hoping to uncover a sliver of clarity amid confusion and grief. But each avenue ended in a frustrating haze. With a warrant in hand, they unearthed Emily's phone records, combing through a long list of contacts and calls, including numerous outgoing calls to Kyle Harris. Forwarding through entries, it became evident that there were more arguments than moments of tenderness in their conversations. Still, nothing flashy stood out. Detective Sullivan leaned back in his chair, frustration seeping into his voice. "None of these seem incriminating on the surface. He's not exactly a textbook abuser. I need something concrete, something that ties him to that night." Thompson sighed, feeling the weight of unresolved tension. "We could always reach out to our family and childhood friends again. Perhaps they can jog loose a memory, a name, something we might have overlooked." Following up on their instincts, they arranged for an interview with Emily's sister, Megan, who drove into Cedar Creek from the city, her eyes glossed over with tears and shock. Sat beneath the fluorescent lights of the station, she shifted nervously, her hands wringing her lapel. Both detectives detected a strength beneath her despair. She had been distant, Megan confided slowly, struggling to form the words around the lump in her throat. "She'd just moved in with Kyle, and I could sense she was unhappy. She kept saying she was fine, but when I would visit, something felt wrong." Prompted by Sullivan's tone, she continued, "There was another guy she mentioned once or twice, a friend from college named Jake. She said he helped her a lot when things got tough with Kyle. I always thought it was innocent, nothing worth worrying over. But in retrospect, it feels like that connection mattered." Thompson and Sullivan traded glances. It was a name they hadn't encountered before. Megan frowned, her voice dropping to a whisper. "But recently she told me she needed space. Then this happened. She said she didn't want to be anyone's victim. I thought she was just talking about Kyle." The mention of Jake sparked a flicker of hope. But as the detectives pursued this new lead, their initial enthusiasm dimmed quickly. Contact attempts were met with dead ends. Old social media accounts were dormant, and calls went unanswered. They felt the frustration build as they stood at yet another impasse, and the grim reality began to settle in. Time was slipping through their fingers like sand, and with it, the urgency to bring justice for Emily Foster. In Cedar Creek, silence lingered, and all the while, the true nature of the darkness that surrounded them remained hidden. Only threads remained to unravel. The mystery was far from over, but hope was beginning to feel like a distant memory. A break in the case. Amidst the thickening fog of uncertainty, the rhythm of the investigation had become almost routine. When a singular, unexpected lead broke through, jolting Thompson and Sullivan from their stagnation. It came in the early hours of a rainy Thursday morning, the kind of dreary day that mirrored the heaviness on the detectives' hearts. An unexpected phone call buzzed through to Thompson's desk. It was Officer Jacobson from the Cedar Creek precinct. "I've got something you need to see," he said, urgency punctuating his voice. "A woman just came forward with information related to Emily's case. She witnessed something the night before the murder." Thompson's heart raced as she exchanged a quick glance with Sullivan, who was already rising from his chair, ready to follow her lead. They hurried to the precinct, eager for any shred of hope. Upon arrival, they found the witness seated in a small room, her hands trembling slightly as she wrung a tissue, her eyes glazed with anxiety. Introducing themselves, they listened closely as she whispered her account. "I was walking my dog that night near the old bridge by the park," the witness explained, her voice frail but determined. "It was around 11, and I saw two figures arguing. I couldn't see their faces, but one of them was a woman. She was yelling, and I thought about calling the police, but you didn't," Thompson gently prompted, letting the silence hang, hoping to draw out more details. "Yes, I froze," she confessed. "I was scared it might escalate. The man was really aggressive, pushing her around. I didn't see the woman's face clearly, but I heard her yell someone's name. It sounded like Kyle, and then she just ran off into the woods." Sullivan leaned forward, his interest piqued. "Did you see where they went?" "Not really, just into the trees. I felt horrible afterward. I keep replaying it in my mind. I wish I had done something," she murmured, tears slipping down her cheeks. Leaving the witness with the officer, Thompson and Sullivan stepped aside to absorb the gravity of what they had just learned. This wasn't just a rumor or hearsay. It was a pivotal moment in the timeline of Emily's final hour. "Do we think this could be enough to circle back to Kyle?" Thompson mused, her mind whirling with possibilities. "Could be," Sullivan replied, glancing at the clock. "We have to verify this. Let's see if we can track down security footage from that area or anyone else who might have been out that night." As they delved back into the investigation, a renewed energy surged through them. The tension in Cedar Creek still loomed large, but for the first time since Emily's death, they finally felt the tide shifting. They were grasping at the threads of a deeper story, and perhaps, if they pulled hard enough, they could reveal the truth shrouded in darkness. The suspect. The momentum from the witness's testimony shifted the initial uncertainty of the investigation into a defined focus, illuminating the shadowy figure of Kyle Harris. Just days after hearing the details of the altercation near the park, Thompson and Sullivan sat at a table in the dimly lit interview room. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation as they prepared to confront the man who had once loved Emily Foster. Thompson glanced up as Kyle was led in, his face betraying little emotion. He wore a denim jacket, and his shaggy hair looked unkempt, as if he had been losing sleep. As he took a seat opposite them, tension coiled in the air like a spring, waiting to snap. "Thanks for coming in, Kyle. We have some questions about Emily," Sullivan began, his voice steady and casual, masking the underlying probing nature of their inquiry. "Yeah, okay," Kyle replied, his eyes darting around the room, revealing hints of nervousness. "Well, what do you want to know?" "We've recently talked to a witness who saw you and Emily arguing near the old bridge last week," Thompson stated, watching closely for his reaction. Kyle's brow furrowed, and he shifted in his chair. "I don't know what you mean. We had a fight. But that's normal in relationships, right? It doesn't mean anything. Just a disagreement." "But a witness claims she saw you pushing her," Kyle, Sullivan pressed, leaning forward slightly. "Is that true?" His demeanor shifted subtly, tension radiating from him. "Look, we had issues," he snapped, the facade beginning to crack. "But I never hurt her. It's ridiculous to think I did. She was going through a rough time. That's why I tried to support her." The detectives exchanged cynical glances, but continued with their questions, probing for inconsistencies in his timeline. It was a dance, a careful push and pull that revealed Kyle's reluctance to reveal the truth. He claimed that Emily had wanted space and reiterated she was doing well over. But with each assertion of his innocence came fresh doubts. His defensiveness only deepened their scrutiny. "What can you tell us about her relationship with Jake?" Thompson asked, watching his face close. Kyle's expression shifted to one of barely concealed anger. "Jake? He's no good for her. He's trouble. Emily thought she could confide in him. But I always worried about his influence. I told her to stay away from him." The accusation spilled out, revealing an undertone of jealousy that neither officer missed. Kyle had been agitated, and for a moment, it felt as if a veil had been lifted from the past. They took notes, aware they were piecing together the fragments of a patterned jealousy that could just as easily tip into violence. But as the session progressed, Kyle continuously evaded the core of their suspicions, artfully dodging accountability. Recognizing they would not unravel him in this moment, Sullivan decided to shift gears. "You know, Kyle, this isn't what Emily would have wanted. The whole town is hurting because of her death. We want answers, and you can help us." Kyle's eyes began to widen, matching the tension in the room. "I didn't do anything. It's not what you think." "I loved her." As he fumbled for words, Thompson's heart raced each answer, only deepening their resolve. It was evident that Kyle was hiding something, and for Cedar Creek, the truth was slowly unfurling from its tangled depths. But whether it would lead them to justice remained uncertain. The suspect before them was both fragile and volatile, a man whose surface had cracked, revealing layers of turmoil hidden beneath his bravado. The trial. The court stood in stark contrast to the peaceful facade of Cedar Creek, the walls echoing with the whispers of anticipation and grief. The day had finally arrived, Kyle. Harris was officially charged with the murder of Emily Foster. The community that once thrived on laughter and camaraderie now grappled with a darkness that hung heavy in the air, the trial poised to unravel the threads of a tragedy that had left chasms in countless lives. Inside the courtroom, emotions ran high. Friends, family, and parents of the children Emily had taught crowded the wooden benches, their expressions a haunting blend of anger and sorrow. Deputy Thompson and Detective Sullivan sat together among them, their hearts pounding. After months of painstaking investigation, they were finally witnessing the culmination of their efforts. As the proceedings began, the prosecuting attorney delivered a somber account of Emily's life, detailing her passion for teaching and the love that had ultimately turned toxic. Projecting images of the crime scene onto a screen, the attorney emphasized the details of that tragic night, the witness's testimony, the phone records, and the tumultuous relationship that had spiraled into violence. Each unfolding piece of evidence painted a vivid picture of a woman whose light had been extinguished. Kyle's defense attorney tried to guide the narrative in a different direction. They argued that Emily had led a secret life, filled with extramarital affairs and indecision about her feelings. They asserted that her own choices had contributed to a chaotic relationship with Kyle. It created a ripple of murmurs among the audience, many recoiling at the implication that Emily had somehow Thompson clenched her jaw, the unfairness of the attack making her stomach churn. Yet, she remained focused, knowing that a well-prepared prosecution could dismantle these tactics and expose the truth. With the testimony of close friends and family, they narrated the story of Emily's fear and her desire to escape a life lived in the shadow of a jealous boyfriend who could not accept the end of their relationship. The turning point came when, in a surprising move, the prosecution called Megan Foster, Emily's sister, to the stand. Her voice shook as she described her sister's bravery in confiding her fears about Kyle, admitting how Emily felt cornered in her own life. She told me she was scared that things would escalate. I think she was trying to break free, Megan said, tears rolling down her cheeks. It was a raw moment that resonated through the room like an aching plea for justice. Through the days of unyielding testimony, suspense coiled in the air. The day that followed saw Kyle take the stand, his composure faltering, as he recounted the events from his perspective. But with the weight of evidence stacked against him, his narrative unraveled under cross-examination. Cracks formed as he wavered between anger and desperation, revealing emotions that spoke to a history of violence within. Finally, after weeks filled with tension and heartbreak, the jury was sent to deliberate. Those days bled together, each moment a mirror of the community's anxious hope. Thompson and Sullivan waited, echoing the uncertainty felt by a town embroiled in pain, yearning for closure and justice for Emily. When the verdict was returned, the courtroom held its breath. As the presiding judge read out the words "guilty of second-degree murder," silence hung for a moment before an emotional wave of relief surged among Emily's loved ones. Although their grief could not be erased, the journey toward healing had begun, and a shared sense of justice illuminated the path ahead. In that moment, undeniably painful but resolutely hopeful, Cedar Creek began to reclaim its peace, one small step at a time. The aftermath. The trial's conclusion rippled through Cedar Creek like a stone dropped into a still lake, sending waves of emotion, reflection, and change cascading through its serene landscape. The sound of the gavel striking echoed in the minds of those who had witnessed the proceedings, underscoring the reality of the community's loss. Emily Foster's absence was a palpable void, but her story continued to resonate, compelling everyone to confront the legacy she left behind. In the weeks that followed, the town transformed in subtle, yet profound ways. News reports highlighted Emily's tragic tale, igniting conversations about domestic violence and mental health awareness. Thompson, feeling the weight of that responsibility, organized community meetings at the local library to foster dialogue and a chance for people to share their stories, learn prevention strategies, and reach out for help. As Thompson spoke to the gathered crowd, shadows of their grief lingered in the air, but resilient spirits twinkled in their eyes. Emily was a beacon in our community, she began, her voice steady, despite the emotions swirling within her. By sharing her story and acknowledging the struggles many hide, we can prevent another tragedy. It's time to bring these conversations into the open. Meanwhile, Megan Foster took up her sister's cause with fierce determination. She initiated the Emily's Light campaign, a community outreach program aimed at supporting victims of domestic violence and promoting awareness. The initiative created partnerships with local organizations, providing resources and safe havens for those who felt trapped like Emily had. As Cedar Creek began healing, Detective Sullivan kept close tabs on Kyle Harris, now imprisoned with a sentence that haunted his every step. His life had irrevocably altered, a stark contrast to the hopes he once held for the future with Emily. His story became a cautionary tale, one that illustrated the deep-seated dangers of controlling relationships and the potential for emotional trauma to bubble into something darker. In the years that followed, the changes in Cedar Creek were tangible. Local schools introduced programs where students learned about healthy relationships, fostering dialogue on respect and consent from a young age. Neighbors began to check in on each other more frequently, knowing firsthand that masks of happiness could cloak untold struggles. Yet amidst the community's growth, there were quiet moments of sorrow. Vigils were held on the anniversary of Emily's death. Each candle lit a potent reminder of the life snuffed out too soon, and a collective promise to protect one another. Friends would share memories, laughter intertwining with tears, revealing the multifaceted impact of Emily's life and the awe of her legacy. As Thompson drove through the town one evening, sunlight filtering through the trees, she felt both the weight of loss and the flicker of hope that had blossomed in its wake. Cedar Creek was forever changing its spirit, taught with the lessons learned from grief, but resilient and determined. Emily Foster would not be forgotten. Instead, her story served as a catalyst for change, a testament to courage, and a reminder that even amid darkness, light can surge forth. In the heart of Cedar Creek, the wind carried whispers of resilience and remembrance, echoing the enduring truth that even the most tranquil of places can hide storms beneath. Together, they would face those storms, drawing strength in unity and love, committed to ensuring that tragedy would not repeat itself. Life would go on, perhaps even more deeply connected as they moved forward together, nurturing the threads of hope that Emily had woven into their lives. Reflection. As the seasons changed in Cedar Creek, the scars of Emily Foster's tragic story remained etched in the townsfolk's hearts. But so did the seeds of resilience that had taken root. With each passing year, the community continued its promise to remember her, not just as a victim, but as a vibrant soul who touched so many lives. Thompson often took long drives along the winding roads that bordered the river, reflecting on the weight of the case that had transformed her practice and her perspective. It was a bittersweet journey, each curve in the road mirroring the unpredictable nature of life, love, and loss. She contemplated how delicate the boundary is between light and darkness, often blurring when human emotions intertwine. During her reflections, she would recall meetings with Megan, who had become both a friend and a fierce advocate for change. Together, they had seen lives transformed, heard stories of survival, and connected with individuals who, like Emily, once felt trapped and alone. But each triumph was tempered with the awareness that many still suffered in silence, their stories yet untold. The drive home would often conclude with a visit to the small memorial they had constructed in Emily's Honora place, adorned with flowers, photos, and messages of hope. Many would come to sit quietly, leaving tokens of love and remembrance, their whispered prayers a way to celebrate the beauty of Emily's existence, while vowing to fight for those who could not yet fight for themselves. In those moments, Thompson recognized the power of community, change, and the enduring light of love that remained unwavering, even in the face of dark. For Cedar Creek, the path ahead was not just about mourning loss. It was about nurturing a future where such tragedy could be prevented by fostering compassion, understanding, and vigilance. The legacy of Emily Foster became a testament, a beacon of hope that illuminated the road to a better tomorrow, binding not just one town, but countless lives touched by her story.